All right, good afternoon. And today we're going to discuss a rather fun topic, and that will be what states have the shortest waiting lists for Section 8 housing. And today I've got a pretty interesting list. What I've done is reworked it so we understand not only the state, but the population, as well as the cities that would probably yield the highest result. For many of you out there, you're probably applying for open waiting lists around the nation. And if you look at the video that I did earlier today, which will also be at the end of this video, you'll see that we discussed some of the process for reaching out and finding really open wait lists around America. And I included some government details for that to help you guys kind of avoid getting in trouble with these scam websites and a lot of the advertisements that lead you in other places. So, anyways, before we get started here, my name is Jay. I am the owner of Section8Consulting.com, and today I want to present these states for you guys. I will also publish them not in the description, but in the comment section. No guarantees on whether or not the list is going to get jumbled up because it's a comment section and I can't structure that data in there very well, but at least it will be available. If you cross reference it also with the information from the previous video, then you should have some well, it should make things easier for you. So moving at number one on our list, and also I want to say one additional thing before we get this cranked out. I've kept a running database over 26 years. I worked at the federal level, 26 years consulting on Section 8 programs, and I know these states, and you're not going to find this kind of list looking on Google or talking to AI. All right. This comes from looking at actual cases, looking at the movement of cases, looking at all the housing authorities, considering difficulty level and many other factors. And a lot of the states and cities I'm going to mention are probably not the ones you would expect. So first up on the list is going to be the state of Wyoming at 590,000 in population. The only two cities there are really, in my opinion, worth mentioning, and that would be Cheyenne at a population of roughly 66,000 and Casper. If you add the words housing authority behind the word Cheyenne or Casper, Wyoming, then you've got the housing authority. It just takes a little bit of deductive research and you'll reach that point. Second on the list, and again, Alaska didn't make it, and it's going to be North Dakota. So you got North Dakota 800,000 throughout the state, and of course the two primary cities being Fargo and Bismarck. Fargo's got 137,000, and Bismarck at 76,000. I don't give a damn who you are if you apply in places like Wyoming and North Dakota. Okay, with a population of 76,000, you'll probably be about one of 20 people that ever applied, right? So it can't be that difficult. You're probably all wondering, well, Jay, well, I don't necessarily want to live out in the middle of anywhere, but nobody's suggesting you can. A big portion of my career, I was able to get housing authorities to port vouchers across the nation, despite the old belief that it takes 12 months of program participation. There are ways around it. If you don't know how to get around it, then reach out to my office. Though I'm not free, I'm by appointment. We can discuss how that might work for you. I've served around 22,000 at this point. All right, third on the list is going to be South Dakota. So we talked about the North. Let's talk about South Dakota. You got Sioux Falls in Rapid City. The state itself hosts a little less than 1 million people, and I believe I'm saying Sioux Falls at 200,000, Rapid City at 82,000. Extremely short. We're talking about months, not years, right? And we're only talking about months if you had the worst case possible. If you went and told them I'm 18, I'm perfectly healthy, I don't have any problems, and I just lack inspiration, you might be last and wait 4 months, right? All right, moving up there, Montana, with only 1 million people throughout the state, and Billings at 121,000. What I find so interesting is I live in the suburbs of Houston. We've got lots of suburbs out here around my own city, and our population of our city and suburbs are virtually the population of most of these cities, right? So it means that literally you can apply it in any given 7 housing authorities surrounding Houston, and they're almost the size of these states altogether. Moving on from there, so Montana, so we're looking at Billings and Missoula. Billings at 121,000 and Missoula 79,000. Just a sprinkling of people. I got to be honest, Montana, despite its wicked winters, man, you talk about some amazing scenery. I'd even consider taking my travel trailer and putting my cats in them and heading up there, but I don't think I'm prepared for to play the Christmas game there. It's a more serious affair, right? Moving on down Nebraska, of course. I hate to talk about cornfields and such, but Nebraska's out there, our great continental divide. And you got Omaha and Lincoln. Omaha at roughly 500,000, and Lincoln just above 300,000. That's pretty modest in my opinion. And so I would say to you that again, you're looking at months, not years. Moving down the list, number 6, West Virginia. Man, let me tell you, West Virginia comes up so much, so much. You got Charleston and Huntington. Um, that state has a problem, the same problem Mississippi, Alabama, and some of the lower states that ain't got much. People don't have a lot out there, and of course, the battle's a little bit more surreal. So I don't know that your resolve will work quite as well in West Virginia because of that, some of the rural parts. But in Charleston and Huntington, you might have an opportunity, considering the population of both cities, just a little less than 50,000, which means a really short waiting list, except for certain counties where you have a greater demand. Okay. Moving on from there, Kansas. Can't leave old Kansas out. When you think of the Kansas, you think of Dorothy and Toto and all that. I'm sure people out there don't appreciate all that. But throughout that state, you got about 3 million. You're looking at Wichita and Overland Park at 400 and 200,000 respectively. I think both. There's probably not a great competition, in my opinion, for housing choice vouchers out there. And certainly, if you don't mind Toto and the tornado, then you probably do all right out there. Let me say a few highs and hellos. Make sure everybody's active properly in our live comments here. Chris, looks like you got several messages retracted. Might want to rephrase. Madam's outlord. Good afternoon, and looks like you recently received Social Security payment for 2 years behind. Uh, Almost 24,000. Will that disqualify me? That's not a sufficient amount of. First of all, let me tell you something, guys. When you ask questions like that, I've had somebody that is now texting me, email malls, and all that. Look, there is about 60 questions that I have to ask to make determinations. Providing two simple things about yourself is not going to be sufficient. I don't even know geographically where you live. Okay. So, what I'm saying to people is if you email my office, you text me, or you hop in a live chat and ask me a question like that, you're going to get an answer. Either call 211 or book an appointment because I cannot do casework in a live video. Okay. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just saying that you're wanting me to pre qualify you. That would mean that I'd have to have a robotic memory of 4,700 housing authorities. And you haven't even mentioned where you are. So there's a lot of questions that need to be asked before I can make those kind of determinations. Okay. Otherwise, you're just looking at tips and tricks. So based on just what you've said, um, Social Security payment, I might presume that you're over 62, possibly. Um, Almost 24,000 disqualified from Section 8 housing voucher, and that's it. I mean, that's nothing. That's like somebody contacting me. I have a purple lizard. Can you get it housing? So, guys, let's be realistic here. I need real information to be able to disseminate an appropriate answer. Okay. It's just become so tiresome today because I've been hit with questions like that a lot today. But damn says, what did I miss? Not much, man. We're just talking about cornfields in Nebraska, if they have them, right? Freak out tent. Good. I'm glad to see you back, brother. We certainly miss you in the channel, and I love that name. Uh, Susu, the real high on Florida. Well, there we go. No cornfields there, just orange fields, right? Don't you guys have the Florida orange? So we'll hop back in our list here and talk about these obscure places in America where people might need a voucher, right? So Nebraska at 400, just under 500,000. And looks like Lincoln at 300,000, as I previously mentioned. So I would say to you, you're probably looking at just under a year's wait and with no high potential of too many applicants there. And then we discussed West Virginia, obviously, that there's some economic issues throughout the state, but there could be some potential in Charleston and Huntington. Moving on down was Kansas. We had mentioned at 3 million there and 400,000. Wichita and Overland Park at roughly 200,000. That's looking like a mid-year wait list if you're out in that area. Iowa, of course, Des Moines and Cedar Rapids. Looks like Des Moines running 200,000 and Rapids, probably Grand Rapids or Cedar Rapids at 137,000. So you're probably looking, if conditions were ideal and it's not summer, probably close to a year's wait there. Mississippi, I knew would come up in a list, and here it is at 3 million throughout the state, and Jackson, Mississippi, and Gulfport. Okay, so I know those areas pretty intimately. Um, when you get out there in that portion, northern Florida, on the bottom of Georgia and so forth, along the Gulf, I don't think the lists are very long. I mean, most of them are 6 to 12 months. And of course, you're pretty close to the beach, but it's always interesting when you look down the coast of Florida, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, and Georgia. You always, before you get to the beach, you always have this really bad neighborhood, right? I never understood that. So you have to cross through a war zone to get over to the beach. So I experienced that because I went back to Pensacola, where that was my first family vacation when I was just a baby with my dad, and so I remember Pensacola, and I remember the bridge and all that good stuff. But anyways, let's not go down memory lane. Moving on from there, Arkansas made the list. So I've got property up there in the northern part, and I can tell you there's 3 million throughout the state. Little Rock and Fayette are going to be the top contenders there, respectively at 200,000 and 104,000. So I can tell you there ain't going to be much of a wait list in terms of Arkansas. The state's barely populated, and I can just tell you, and I've seen some pretty good dynamics out there. If you don't mind living out in the country a bit, and in Ozarks and different places throughout Arkansas, I think you quite enjoyed it. It's quite nice, and just stay away from the people that use meth. There's lots of that trash going on in certain parts of the state, so just watch out. I know this because I own property out there now. Even I was stunned by that. Moving back to the comments here, let's see if anybody has anything pleasant to say or ugly. Madame, out loud, laughing out loud. Jenny Kim, I was wondering about the same thing. When did you apply for Section 8? Applied 424 and was waiting on the front in front of a judge. Okay, well that sounds interesting. Susu says Pensacola area. Old Pensacola, man, you can have cocktail, but look, you got to cross the war zone to get there, And so when I booked the hotel, well, that was a real piece of shit there. That hotel, they put up these fancy photos. Let me tell you exactly what happened in Pensacola. Okay, I'm gonna be honest about this because even I was stunned. I expect this kind of shit from Baton Rouge or New Orleans. I get out in Pensacola, yeah, real nice hotel until the lights go dim, the sun goes down, and then all of a sudden, you got people smoking meth in the parking lot. You got a prostitute twirling around Piggly Wiggly that's been closed for half a century. And I was just thinking, and of course, my mother was alive at that time, so she's like 70. She's out there talking to the hookers. I'm like, Mom, please stop. I just need to go in the store for milk. My mother, of course, can talk to any fucking person. So we're in a bad parking lot in a war zone just before you skip into where all the rich folks go to the beach, right? And mom's out there just cutting the carpet with all the prostitute and junkies. She don't even, it's just like her. She don't never know what the fuck is going on around her. So I hate to go down memory lane with that, but honestly, Mom, God rest her soul. She left us about a year ago. Sweetest woman you'll ever know. But yeah, she could cut the rug with anybody. She didn't care what your problem was. So uh, this is how things go. All right, moving on back. Skipping on down the list to number 11, Oklahoma. I got grandparents live out in Cole County near Muskogee. So for those of you that are from the state, I understand that. Oklahoma City riding in at 720,000 and 404 respectively in Tulsa. Last time I checked Oklahoma, it ain't so bad out there. It has some of the lowest cost rentals in the nation. Okay, got a lot of good folks out there, and like any other good city, there's always going to be good and bad parts. You just got to figure out what works for you, and they have some pretty decent waiting lists out there. Some can range depending on the preferences and criterias. I think you end up in a pretty good situation, especially if you stick to Oklahoma or Tulsa. Okay. Now we're going to talk about Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? Kentucky, state of Kentucky. I had to throw that out there for you guys. Probably being disrespectful saying that, but old Kentucky, Louisville at 640,000 and Lexington at 330. Both recommendable cities. Population's a little bit high, and the potential for vouchers out there, I would put at a modest value. In other words, you're going to do a little waiting, okay, a year or two. I'm pretty sure of that. So we're going to skip on to our next Alabama at 5 million, and that surprised me. I didn't think that many people were out in Alabama, but they are. Okay, so Huntsville at 240,000. I'm pretty sure half that number's for the local prison, and then of course Mobile at 205,000. I've spent lots of time there because when you're a Cajun like me and you got family out in Louisiana, one of the necessities of life is going down to Mobile. Okay, that's just how it works out. With lots of time out in the Gulf on the boat, and Mobile was always part of that deal. So at 200, a little over 200,000 in both cities, and I'm making a recommendation um, for a potential there. Keep in mind, activities throughout both cities can be both good and bad. Good judgments required. Same thing if you go to Mardi Gras in New Orleans. You can have a great time. Just don't ride down every other side street, okay? So, welcome to the South. I know it well. I grew up in it. All right, let's take a look at comments here while I deliver the truth with a side of spice. Freak out tent. Thank you for the comment. Do you have any counties in Florida? We'll get there, brother. Don't worry. We're doing the countdown. It's just like the old countdown to the music list, right? Skokie Land, I don't have anything pleasant to say. I knew Mr. Skokie Land was going to jump in there because he's a native and he's been shit on. And I can, I feel your pain, brother. I understand why. Lots of people get tired of the party lines, cows, and oil wells out there in Oklahoma. So I get it. Not everything goes well. All right, moving up from there. Looks like Madame. That's right, Mama. And then Chambers, soft shell of hell. Sent high five for you and 100 jewels. Well, thank you so much for contributing to our channel, and just want to give that quick shout out. Thank you for the jewels. I'm gonna have to look at what that means because YouTube's filled with things that sparkle, pop, tickets, and emojis and all kinds of shit. So jewels are new to me. I've got to look into what jewels are. So I appreciate that monetary donation. Um, I'm always surprised. So I'm learning something new today. Side note, what is Jules? But I think that you probably donated their channel. Rita Muffins. Is it Rita Muffins or Mullins? Oh, it's Mullins. Sorry. See, that's the problem. I don't wear my glasses. You could be a muffin. Do you have a clue about a wait list for Dallas? I always have clues, man. Look, my pockets are full of clues. Nobody tries to kill themselves doing a shitty, being a consultant at the federal level for Section 8, okay? Without having lots of boxes of clues, okay? It's literally my job to have a clue. So, Dallas, Fort Worth, the metro area doing well, and I don't believe they're going to be on the list today, but they are definitely recommended portability cities. So there's a lot, including the surrounding suburbs. So I would put Dallas and Fort Worth on the top of my list for habitability. In other words, great places to go. If you don't like one housing authority or waiting list, you've got like 10 more as to I call it the tri-state area for the South because you have Houston, Austin, Dallas, and then Fort Worth. And so you have four of the top cities all together, plus suburbs. If you can't figure out where the hell you want to go, what list you want to be on with that many cities parked 4 hours apart, then I don't know what to tell you. You're going to be same dilemma as the Upper East Coast, right? So there's a lot going on. Moving on from there, next up is going to be Alabama. Let's see, we did Alabama, Missouri, Kansas City, and St. Louis. Respectfully, one at 500,000 in St. Louis and 280,000. It looks like I'm sorry, 500,000 on Kansas City and 280,000 St. Louis. Wait lists are going to be moderate there, 2 to 3 years, and caution will be required. Not everything in the city is going to work out to be great, okay? These are very old cities too, but they're cities with a lot of soul. And like many places in America, I love to visit. Next up, going to be Indiana and Indianapolis. So Indiana is hosting around 7 million in their state. And the primary is going to be in Indianapolis and Fort Wayne County, and so that's roughly a million in Indianapolis and about 300,000 in Wayne County. So I can tell you right there, you're probably 2 to 5 years on that wait list, depending on probably depending on the preferences and what they're looking at for that state, what's been budgeted in. So moving on from there, we got Indiana at 7 million. Did I cover that one? Yeah, I did. So it's Michigan. So we got Detroit at 650,000 and Grand Rapids at 200,000. Look, before you roll your eyes and decide that Detroit ain't for you, Detroit's come a long ways. That city has really worked hard to recover its reputation. A lot of the properties have been bought and improved. So there have been great improvements for the city of Detroit. I'll support that completely. And they're downtown, they're coming out. The funk is leaving Detroit. It's taking a while, okay? Same thing with New Orleans and Baton Rouge. Every city goes through a point where it goes through a funky period and it's coming out of that. It may not quite be there just yet, but look, the waiting list, the people of the city of Detroit are always there to welcome you, and there are lots of safe areas and throughout the state. There's as many safe places there as there's New Orleans and Baton Rouge, and I grew up in these places, and a lot of my family live in them. Okay, and unless you're just a scary person and you can't handle the real world, right? So not everybody's out to get you. The boogeyman ain't everywhere. Moving on from there, Michigan. So we talked about Detroit, Grand Rapids, and so you're looking at a 2 to 3, maybe 5 year waiting list. Ohio, Columbus, and Cleveland. Good judgment again, especially with Cleveland. But you know what? Like all great things, there's lots to do, and the waiting lists aren't too bad. So Columbus at roughly a million people in the city. So you're looking at 5 to 7 years, possibly. Cleveland a little less at 400,000, and they have a better budget, but a little bit more funky going on. But I think that respectfully, the city has lots of great things to offer if you look in the right areas and you're able to get on the waiting list out there. So you're probably looking, Cleveland's probably around 5 to 6 years with good preferences. Tennessee, and you got Nashville and Memphis. Use great caution, guys. Use great caution with Tennessee. I've been through there. I even took mom down to Graceland in Nashville and so on. Tennessee's going through a lot. Okay, it's looking a lot like New Orleans and Baton Rouge and back in the '80s. So I think that the state of Tennessee is working towards getting the funky out. There's lots of problems and so on, but if you can find good areas out there, there is a lot to offer. Okay, but use caution. And I'm saying that with great pride. I think that Tennessee needs to work on things out there a bit more. Uh, but for most of the rest of the state outside of those two cities, I believe that Tennessee is a great place to be. Okay. Waiting list times, well, it's pretty high. And so I don't even, uh, considering the population roughly at 700 and 600,000, respectively, both cities, you're probably looking at 5 to 8 years without good preferences. Okay. That may change depending on federal funding. Another runner-up is going to be South Carolina. Great place. Okay, South Carolina's got a lot of history. It has a very close parallels in my home state, and so you got Charleston and Columbia. Look, great places. Okay, you look at a little bit of time, but they have a lot to offer out there. There's a lot less funky going on, but I can tell you that getting on either one of those lists would actually be really worth it, even if you had to take a voucher in a different place and then port there. Okay, so Charleston, especially, not just because of white folks and all that, but look, just because it's great. It's if you love the southern states, South Carolina is always pitched a very strong game for that. So, all right, move back down here. Let's take a look at the jewels we got here. Thank you for the 100 jewels. Um, Eric K. Hi, have I ever seen you live? I have never seen you live. Well, I've been on here 15, going on 16 years, and I made about 3,000 videos. So YouTube won't recommend me and my conversation or my lives unless you're actually looking for it. And another big part of that is I don't often I keep my own schedule. That's the neat thing about a YouTube channel. I just do what the hell I want when I want, and it's probably not what YouTube wants me to do. It would like me to follow this regime schedule, but as you get older, you care less about what YouTube wants. I just do shit when I feel like it. And today I felt like doing this mainly because I got one of my cats I got to go pick up from the vet, and it seemed rather logical to do this now versus at 6 p.m. at night. So I'm just being honest, guys. Jacqueline, hey Jay, glad to see you here. Stay encouraged. I'm very encouraged. So I want to give some updates now that we kind of ran through the list. And let me just tell you the last one on the list. Number 20, Pennsylvania. Look, it's going to have a bit of a wait. If any of you guys remember me back pre-pandemic, if you were around in our channel back in those days, man, we ran more people through the state of. There were two cities I went after, especially in two states. Okay, Washington and Pennsylvania. You know why? Because their program it was like you had grandma making crap ducks out there. Okay, the housing authority didn't know really what they were doing, and I let me tell you, we snatched more vouchers out of that state, and I ran that we ran people through that state for 4 years. I think we took everything but the light bulbs out that state because Pennsylvania didn't understand how to operate properly, and so they allowed a lot of portability. So they were number one on my hit list for 4 years running. Thank you, Pennsylvania, for being the easiest state in the U.S. to port a voucher out, despite not ever stepping a foot in your state. And the second place award goes to the stupidest housing authority in America, and that'd be Seattle, Washington. They publicly announced they had vouchers during the pandemic, and they said, and I quote, we have we can't give our vouchers away. Now, when I got word of that, we ran a choo-choo on that housing authority until they had nothing left, not even a paint job. We stole everything. I mean, the sidewalk, the building, all of it. Don't ever make a public announcement how you can't give no voucher away. Because if my office finds out, with the number of people that contact me, let me tell you, it will be a fire sale within 24 hours. You won't even know what hit your housing authority. And so, to the tune of around 5,000 vouchers, I'd say that out of that number, my office easily walked 400 vouchers out of that city. So, anytime you want to make a public announcement that's stupid, please email me first because we have lots of hungry participants here all over the states that are looking for that. I can't give the voucher away situation. Okay, instant vouchers. So that definitely you know what, Seattle's a beautiful place, and I don't think people at the Seattle Housing Authority are stupid. I just think that the action of advertising that way was asking for it, and my job is not to consider uh, the morals and ethics of that housing authority is to consider what my clients need. So you keep on making those announcements. We'll be back. Moving back, taking a look at the comments here. That sounded really low down, but look, it is my job. I'm not here to do prayer circles. My clients need vouchers. They don't need anything else but that. Okay. So, Eric K. Hi, I've never okay. So I read that one. Jacqueline, thank you so much. Susu, that's right. Eric K. What about the waiting list in Harris County? Well, right now we're kind of on a wait till you die deal. Everybody is, we have people, when you say open waiting list in the city of Houston, even wealthy people stop and they clock out of their job at lunchtime and go try to get a voucher because people love free shit in our city. So imagine this. We opened that waiting list a couple years back, 88,000 people. Now, do you really think 88,000 fucking people in the city really needed a voucher? So they were running sales ads, they were running specials at the Piggly Wiggly. Anybody need a voucher? Go line up and burn up. So you get out there, you have a tent, you put it on the sidewalk, you wait 3 days, and then people went out there and had a fucking riot to get in line to discover they were only going to take the first 100 people. So here's my advice: wait till shit cools off and it's a different president in office that likes vouchers and housing more, and then revisit that. That is going to be Harris County. Now, Houston as a whole has its own housing authority. You might have a shot there. Susu, you help get vouchers. Yes, I have. We actually posted the numbers on our website. Though I haven't updated it in a couple of years, but I think we last count was 17,000 over a very long period. And to be clear, guys, it's not 17,000 successful ballots. It's 17,000 people or families. Okay, So maybe one day I'll clarify that if I ever learn how to do a better job of being a webmaster. But I would say we were averaging probably, I don't know, two or 300, up to 500 vouchers a year. That was at the peak. These days, I only work about 5 cases every month, sometimes less than that. It just depends. This is the toughest administration we've ever had. And so it's not easy, and housing authorities, as you remember earlier last year, Congress closed. And they were up for 43 days, and then there were funding cuts on top of funding cuts, then changes in rules. And so it's been especially tough couple of years. We got another 900 days to go. And, before it possibly gets easier, I don't think anybody could be tougher on housing than the current president. It'd be a long time for see anybody that has a distaste for it as much as he does, but it's his business. He got elected. He can do what he wants. Moving on from there, One Marble, love you. Thanks for the clappy hands. Legality loaded TV. My father is retiring from New York this year. 65 is moving to Texas, where I live. Can he apply for Section 8? Of course he can. Um, you know, uh, it's helpful that he's 65 and a senior, but at the end of the day, there's probably about 60 questions I would want to ask your dad, about income, assets, and other things, and also discuss geographical area and determine what kind of preferences he has because these things matter. A lot of you guys jump out there and you get online and you see an open waiting list and you start writing all your shit in there, right? So here's the problem: housing authorities are funded for different things at different times of the year. And so if they have specific preferences and say your dad's case doesn't match that and you sign up, then you just cooked your duck. You're going to remain languishing on a list where it may not produce a fruitful result. So a lot of times through casework, I have to go out and get administrative plans and then figure out what their policies and procedures are regarding preferences and special use vouchers. That's where you could actually exploit a little bit of the policies favorably for your case, but just blindly signing up for a waiting list is usually a terrible idea because about 10% of them are actually going to be primary applications, and they are very clever in the questions they ask. They will shame you guys into not answering specific questions because they know that if you were to check that box, it would allow you a higher priority. So there's a little bit of wordplay in some of these applications, and it's not one shoe fits all feet. Every housing authority has a different administrative plan and different way it operates, different funding, and different preferences. Understanding the fundamentals of one county and its housing authority is not going to be the same for the other 4,300. It's like dealing with 4,300 independent nations, all that submit administrative plans to HUD. And so you see, it's a game you have to unwind. And the first game you have to master is understanding how to actually get high enough preferences or rebuild or build a case that is actually going to be meaningful and actually be able to get you a voucher in the near future. And certain things can actually expedite that, like lightning, like domestic violence. That's why there's been so many housing authority administrators that have been charged for federal crimes because even they understood that including domestic violence in cases could potentially move a client in the little top 10 overnight. So if you understand all those rules that are there, then you can kind of engineer your case to match what's there. Is it illegal? No, it's not illegal. It just means that you're reverse engineering casework favorably to work the way that it needs to, so you don't languish for 5 and 10 years. There are a lot, and the more people that keep applying. So let's imagine a list of 100 people. 100 people call, they fill out an application, they apply. Right now, you got a fantastic number. You're number 70, right? Well, you're number 70 for this moment in time. And throughout the year, as 10,000 more people apply, because you lack proper, you don't have proper case preferences. It's like a balloon. Those at the top will continue to get pushed higher, and those that are below the 50% mark will continue to get pushed down. So the harder you blow into this balloon, the farther apart it gets. So while it looks good at application day, it's horrible in 6 months because if you got a bad case and they don't actually consider your preferences or you didn't mention them, then you could end up in a bad position with that. And you'll continue as more people apply, you'll continue to rocket to the bottom. And so, not only that, but I mean, you're not only dealing with applications for primary housing and housing choice vouchers, you got project based housing, low income housing, you have continuum of care programs, and divide those up under Title 24. Then we can identify an additional 130 different types of programs and housing solutions out there, not even mentioning state and county solutions, and not mentioning below that special use. And so you guys only have a fundamental interest in what you've only heard on TV. Well, I'm gonna sign up on the waiting list. Well, for what? And for what reason? I don't think half of you guys even know the other 100 things that are available on the market. You've some a lot of you have somehow surmised that this whole thing leads to one singular voucher, but it's simply not true. There are lots of housing solutions. That's why it's so important when people ask me questions. The biggest question is what are my options? And for me to answer that, for most of you, means I need to talk to you and we need to discuss. I need to ask you about 60 different questions and determine whether or not there's any validity to your case, because otherwise, what would be the point in even bothering to do this stuff if we're not going to be able to achieve a result in under a year, right? So moving on from there, Skokie Lamb, very helpful. Thank you. Found a nice and very comfortable place in Lake Eupula, Oklahoma. One Marvel says, is there any way for Section 8 recipients to get rent relief once in Los Angeles, California? Man, let me tell you, you guys in LA have got it tough right now. The president has singled out the city of Los Angeles and cut off funding. Okay. He is not playing with that city. He's going after homeless funding there. And right now, he's opening a federal investigation into LACIA, the housing authority. And so everything's frozen there. Not to mention that that city and its county are the epicenter of the largest homeless population on the planet. And then second to that, you have a housing crisis, tents wrapped on every street, and you've got travel trailers wrapped around the city. So the conditions there for housing, even if you were blind, missing a leg, one ear, one tooth, right? You were both physically disabled, mentally disabled, you would still have 6,000 other people with extreme preferences above you because there's such a high concentration of fucked up people there, all right, that have a lot of problems that even your own case would be barely distinguished as normal. In other words, you could have a missing eye, a wooden leg, glass eye, in a wheelchair with cancer, 98, extreme low income, and you would barely register 50% of the list because the upper threshold has two missing legs, four eyeballs, 10 ears, 78 disabilities, plus they're smoking a crack pipe, and you see the problem here? The concentration of people is too high, the extreme number of cases. It means even if you have a good case, it's barely noticeable. They just check you for a pulse and go, well, look, hey. So there's opportunities, but you're going to have to look outside of LA right now, okay? And I can tell you that the administration has already taken great interest in that city, and is quite possible the DOJ and OIG, Office Inspector General, could take over the housing authority, and all this shit can be shut down for a while the federal government figures out what they want to do. So the consequence is pretty dire. So I don't want to spook you, my friend. I'm just suggesting that this isn't new news. It was already the most difficult place on the planet to get anything, but it's become more profound because now the government's involved in it. Okay. So you would have a better chance driving your car over the county line anywhere but there. That's the God honest truth. Okay. So there could be chances, but look, we got 903 days till a possible new election. And if that president at that time decides to have a little mercy on housing and other issues, then maybe at that time it might be a better circumstance. But right now, it's as hard as it's ever been. And it's especially targeted in that city. But, when you waste billions of dollars of taxpayers' money, commit fraud, and run a syndicate called the Housing Authority, at some point the government had to get involved. So, as much as it is my job to defend and also advocate for people for vouchers, even I don't agree with the depravity in which the Housing Authority is operated. Even I see it as a massive problem that should have been They should have stormed that building with the feds a long time ago, and along with all the crooked nonprofits. I have a lot to say about it, so I don't want to make this video about that. But look, LA, people are good people out there, and then you got people with problems. But the people that are in charge of helping fix problems have committed are not helping, okay? And that's the real problem here. So we'll see how things turn out in another year or two. But for now, everything's frosted over there and is under review. And I don't know what the future of things are. If they do issue vouchers out there at this point, and for any reason, I can assure you it'll likely be some employee privately writing vouchers to the maid and the lawn man or somebody they know. Is probably not going to be to anybody that actually needs it, because that place has operated like the Wild West for a long time. I'm not speaking of the city, I'm talking about the housing authority itself. So as of now, they've also terminated 1/3 of the employees. Okay. So they're having a meltdown at that for that housing authority. More than 1/3 of the employees are now gone. They're terminated. So contingent of the investigation's completion, the administration, federal government, we may see this agency be dissolved, and it may take a couple of years before they're able to restart giving services out there. But for now, it's a no-go zone. All right, moving on from there. It looks like we've answered all the questions. We've been all over the board. We've talked a little bit about the spicy. We talked about our top 20 states, and I'm going to rerun that real quick for late arrivers. So, but I'm not going to mention the cities. It's going to be Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Nebraska, West Virginia, Kansas, Iowa, Mississippi, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Alabama, Missouri, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, Tennessee, South Carolina, and last but least, Pennsylvania. So I will post the results of all these. You'll need to verify yourself. And if you look at a previous video that discuss waiting lists, it'll provide an accurate representation of the open waiting list throughout the US from actual government websites. I'm going to give you an advisory warning to not click on ads inside those websites. Those websites they earn extra money from ads. Some of those ads, a lot of those ads are malicious. They are not to legitimate companies. I would advise strongly you not click on that. I have at least 3 clients right now that have their whole phones taken over because they decide to click on free advice links. Okay, be careful with that. I'm just warning you. Once they got you, they got you. All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna go get cat food, and I'm gonna go pick up one of my cats. And so the final update I'm gonna get is I had mentioned in previous videos over the last couple of days that we had some serious problems with my cats, and they play a large part of our channel, especially during the winter. They're ever present in my videos, doing all kinds of naughty things. And so it turns out after testing that it was actually the cat food is what did it. It was improperly stored by Amazon, ultimately creating a very dangerous sporous mix in the cat food, which ultimately killed my oldest cat, and it also caused 2 more of my cats to be near death. I'm going to go pick up Pops. He's after 3 days has now regained consciousness, and they have treated him, and so he's well enough to be home. Little Mama, one of my older cats, she's a female. She's still in pretty bad condition, and we're still not sure she's going to actually make it. I'm going to tell you something, guys. If you buy anything from a company called Blue Buffalo, be extraordinarily careful. They had, I should have never dealt with that company. Their food, it's not that the food's bad. If if it lands in a warehouse and isn't properly cooled and other things, you can kill your animals. Okay, and so you know, I'm almost 8,000 deep in medical debt to keep these 3 cats alive. One which is dead, one which is almost dead, and another coming home. All because of misconduct, both on the part of Amazon's storage facilities, how they keep that food, and then, of course, the company itself for the way that they mix those foods, which will allow the situation to present itself. So I can tell you that legal remedies will be flying soon. I'm just waiting for the fallout to end, and then I'm going after both companies for culpability here because It's just dangerous. You don't know what's going on. So I recommend people buy your cat foods and other products that deal with your live animals directly from the store, so you're able to verify things are proper, because you're not going to see it, eyeball it. It only takes a little bit of sporous activity in these foods to completely shut down all the organs. So that is the update. It's not a pleasant one, but it is what it is. So I'm going to go get him. He will remain with me on bed rest. He's not moving around much. This is the first day he's even had his eyes open. So it's the stuff is deadly. And I'll be in touch with that company soon, to let them know that, it's interesting reading the reviews. This isn't the first time this company has killed people's pets. Okay. They have a longer reputation for it than most cat food companies do. So I'm considering new options that don't involve commercial grade cat food altogether, eliminating this. Anyways, that's my thoughts. That's a personal matter. But since my cats are part of the channel, they are employees of my office. I thought I'd bring them up because many of you know them and have seen them. So Pops comes home, and we will keep an eye on little mama and see if the good Lord wants her to come back, or if this is going to be her point to leave. But I'll be there for her one way or another. All right, guys, y'all have a great night. I'm gonna head out. Bye for now.